Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
Hey, good evening. We are live.
Glad to be with you again.
Yeah, we're excited. Okay, so tonight we have we've got a huge topic tonight. It's day 2 of our winter gardening challenge. Hey, Fred, Sid, Sally, Darlene, Rebecca, Leslie, Dorothy, so many people rolling into the chat. Please let us know if you can see us, if you can hear us. We want to make sure that everything is going smoothly for you. We've got a big topic tonight, all about the timing for your winter garden, making sure you get those plants planted on time, and this is extremely crucial. So you're not going to want to miss it. Yeah. So Karen says, can't wait for tonight. Awesome. We can't wait as well. Yes, lots of people saying yes, they can hear us. All right, very good. Video audio is fine.
I'm seeing people from all over.
Yeah, you know, we got people, we got someone, I saw someone in the Facebook from South Africa. I think we have people from Australia in here, all over the USA. So we've got a big party going on here around the whole world. So we're excited. Angela, Miriam, Susan, Bernie, Ron, good to see you. Kylie, Nancy. All right, we've still got people rolling into the classroom here. So we just want to give, before we jump into the session, we've got a power-packed session. We're gonna really got a big reveal as well to show you all a really neat tool that you're gonna be able to have access to for planning your winter garden. And so just before we get there, a couple house rules, because we may have some new people in here that were on last time. During the session, you can ask questions, but I'm gonna actually change it up this time, and I think that we should have people ask questions at the end because they get lost in the chat. So feel free to ask questions as we go along. We may see some of them and answer some of them, so you're welcome to put them in. But the way this is going to work is we are going to have our main presentation here. We're going to be sharing with you. I'm going to pull up some slides. We're going to go through a training session. And then at the end of that training session, we're going to open it up for question and answers. And then at that time, definitely we want you to be putting in your questions. And when you do, in the chat box, when you type in your message in the chat, there's a toggle. You can mark it as a question. And that's really important. Otherwise, it can easily get lost. So when it gets marked as a question, it shows up for us as, hey, this is a question, right? And we can actually filter down to just look at the questions. And so you want to definitely mark yours as a question if you have questions as we go along.
So if I could just restate what Paul said, if you can give us a question while we're going through the presentation, we may or may not catch it.
Yeah.
But if we did not catch it while we were doing the presentation, please hold on to your question, remember it, write it down or something, and give it to us again at the end. And chances are greater we'll be able to get to it then.
Yep, exactly. All right, so without further ado, as more people are jumping in, hey, it's Paul and
Edwin,
my dad, Edwin, and we're going to be sharing tonight specifically about the timing for your winter garden and making sure that you get your plants planted at the right time. This is super critical, and it's one of the biggest things you got to take into factoring when you plan a winter garden. And if you get it right, you're going to have a really fantastic garden, hopefully. So last session, that was our launch, and you had a little bit more of an introduction to us. So if anyone's on new, make sure to go back and watch session 1. You're not going to want to miss that. You get a little bit more introduction to who we are and a whole training last time on choosing what to grow, right? This session, we're coming into day number 2. So I'm going to pull up our slides here, and we're going to jump right in because we've got a lot to cover. What do you think, Dad? Anything else that we should? Okay. All right, let's do this. So, all right, here we go. So, Winter Gardening Challenge Day 2, timing your winter garden and creating your planting schedule. And right off the bat, we announced it yesterday and it's happening again today. We are doing free giveaways, and tonight's free giveaway is our plug and play garden plan. So anyone who sticks with us live through the end of this class, we're going to do a free giveaway right at the beginning of the question and answer session. We're going to do it on here live with you. You can watch us do the giveaway, and one of you will win our plug and play garden plan. It is the exact plan that we use to grow over $1,000 worth of food in a small garden space. It has an easy layout for maximizing space in your garden. It's very scalable plan. It really can fit any size garden. You can scale it up. You can cut it in half. It includes growing 20 different varieties of popular veggies and herbs, and it has a built-in crop rotation. So it's basically just a well, it's a plug-and-play garden plan. You can literally just plug it into your garden, right? So we'll be doing that at the end of the class. And just a quick recap from last time, especially for those who are new. We're doing giveaways, free drawings at the end of each class. So last night we did our Ultimate Garden Immune Booster cheat sheet. Tonight is the plug-and-play garden plan. And each time that we have a class, you're gonna have opportunity to win. Plus, along with these ones, we're doing one big giveaway. All right, I don't want you to get confused with the nightly ones. We're doing one big giveaway, and that is to win lifetime access to our Elite Gardening membership. This includes your own personal click and drop gardening calendar, monthly live meetings with my dad and myself, private Facebook group access to our entire garden training library online. It's really just kind of giving away the kitchen sink in a way. And you get lifetime access for free. You don't have to pay a cent, a dime, ever. So how do you participate in this? To participate in the big giveaway of lifetime access to our Elite membership, to enter, you've got to be active in the Facebook group, all right? So that means every post that you post and every comment that you comment in the Facebook group is an entry to win. This is just helping boost our community together, right? So encourage each other, say hi to each other, post your, when you finish your homework, put a post in there, go live. Every single one of those is an entry to win. The more entries you have, which equals the more activity that you have in the Facebook group, right? Because every post, every comment is an entry to win. The more entries, the higher your chance of winning. The only caveat here is you are not allowed to spam. If we find people spamming, that will automatically disqualify you and we will remove you. So just be active, be authentic in the Facebook group, and the more active you are, the better chance you have to win.
So Paul, I noticed there are some people in the chat who are asking about the other giveaways, if they're available. If you didn't win it, are they available to you some other way?
I've been thinking about that, and yeah, we will make those available to you, all right? So even if you don't win it, we'll make those available so that you can get them at that. Tomorrow night, I'll announce that, okay? So don't worry about it tonight. Tomorrow night, we'll be announcing that. All right, recap on the downloads. For each class, there is a homework sheet, and then I also have these slides available for each class, and those are going to be available in the Facebook group under the units. There are units for each day in the Facebook group, so go look for those. Plus, all the resources for each class session will be posted in the unit for that class and will also be sent by email. So I recognize some of you are not on Facebook. Don't worry, we've got you covered. We will send that to you by email as well. All right? So I just want to make sure that you get the resources for each class. That includes the slides as well as the homework sheet and any other downloads that we have for you. All right? All right, so quick overview of our winter gardening challenge. Yesterday we did day one, which was choosing what to grow and where to grow your winter garden. I saw quite a few of you posting in there that you finished the homework. Congrats, good job for you. We're excited about that. Day two is tonight. We're talking about the timing for your winter garden, creating your planting calendar. Day three, tomorrow, we're gonna talk about protecting your winter garden. I'm gonna show you a pretty cool way that you can do that without breaking your pocketbook. Pretty inexpensive way to do that. And then, in case you missed it last night, we are doing a bonus day. This was unannounced when we promoted the Winter Gardening Challenge. We promoted it as a 3-day, but we're gonna throw in a bonus day for you, okay? And that is going to be a bonus question and answer wrap-up time. It's really tailored and focused on you. And we're just going to, we're kind of leaving it open-ended. We haven't planned anything really specific. We're going to do a lot of question and answers, but we may throw in something as a surprise for you. So keep that in mind.
Maybe try to put in something we weren't able to get in.
Yeah.
Maybe some of your questions will spark a realization we need to say a little more about something.
Yep. So yeah, surprise on day 4. Make sure that you come. Otherwise, now is the time to silence your distractions, turn off your phone. I know I talk a lot about the Facebook group, but shut down Facebook right now. And let's focus in on this presentation. We're going to be covering a lot, and we've got a lot to cover in this. And so make sure you got your pen, some paper to take notes, and let's dive right in. We're going to start out tonight by talking about something that we call our perpetual harvest hack. And this is well, I say we're going to start out. Our whole presentation is kind of centered around this perpetual harvest hack. So we're going to go over the concept of it first. Then we're going to hit up on the timing of your winter garden, and then we're going to show you a tool that just is really, really awesome. So let's talk about the simple way of gardening. And if we break gardening down into its simplistic form, gardening is full of decisions. You're always making decisions about, what you're going to grow, how you're going to grow it, the actions that you're going to do in your garden. And really, gardening is the simple art of knowing 3 things, okay? It's knowing what to do. That's like your plan for your garden, right? It's knowing how to do it. Those are the actual actions you're going to do to implement that plan in your garden, and making sure that you're doing it at the right time, the timing. And timing is absolutely critical. And we've said that before. I'm going to say it again. It's extremely critical. The power of what we call our perpetual harvest hack is when you have all 3 of these synchronizing together all in one place. So when you know what to do, you know how to do it, and you know when to do it at the right time, all synchronized in the same place where you don't even have to think about it, that is the power of a perpetual harvest hack. And we're going to share with you how you can use a perpetual harvest hack in your garden. All right, so just a quick overview of these 3 things. First of all, what to do. This is your plan, right? So this is like what we were talking about yesterday, creating a list of crops that you're going to grow. Seeding, transplanting, cultivating, watering, trellising, harvesting. Those are all what to do in your garden. And there's also succession or leapfrog planting. How many of you have heard of succession planting, or I coined the term leapfrog planting? This is kind of a special thing. We're going to throw in just a little segment on this here. Let's see. The presentation, Susan, should be filling the screen on your end. If it's not, you may want to reconnect and refresh it. Refresh your screen there. Okay, a lot of you have heard of succession planting. All right, fantastic. For those of you who haven't, I'll say, what is leapfrog planting? What is succession planting? It's where each time you harvest something from your garden, you have another crop ready to plant in its place, okay? Example with lettuce, let's say you harvest your lettuce, immediately you have a transplant that's ready to put in the same place that you just harvested that lettuce out of, right? That's what we call succession planting or leapfrog planting. But it doesn't just have to be the same crop, it could be a different crop. So example with peas, peas you often grow in the spring, right? And then green beans are a summer crop. And you could take your peas, and immediately after your peas are done, you can plant green beans in that same place. And that's called a succession planting or a leapfrog planting. Now, remember the topic for tonight is all about timing, right? And the issue with succession or leapfrog planting is that it can be kind of complex. You've got to figure out when to plant your first crop, then how long before that crop will be harvested, right? How many days to maturity? Then how long of a harvest window you can expect from that crop? You know, if you're planting green beans, how long are you going to be harvesting those green beans before you're going to plant another crop, before you take those out and you're going to plant another crop in, right? And then when to plant the second leapfrog crop so that it's ready to go in when the first crop is harvested.
That's especially if you're transplanting. You want to have those transplants at the right stage, ready to pop in the garden when the other one comes out.
Right, exactly. Plus, you've got to figure out how long in the season that crop can be grown. Because last night we were talking about cool season versus warm season veggies, right? So your warm season veggies, green beans are only going to last so long, and then you've got to plant a cool weather crop in that place, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to know how long in the season that crop can be grown. And then you've got to repeat that for each crop because they're all different. So if everything we just told you sounds overwhelming, don't worry. We're going to show you an extremely simple way that you can do this, okay? The truth is, it really doesn't take that much more physical work to do succession planting or leapfrog planting. You know, starting seeds is not that hard. Transplanting them out into your garden isn't that hard. I think, you know, it's not that much more physical work, but can it be complicated? Yes, it can be. It can sure be complicated, especially when you have lots of different veggies growing in your garden, lots of different varieties, right? So that is, unless you're using what we call our perpetual harvest hack, and that's what we're going to be revealing to you a little bit later, this tool that you can use to make it extremely simple. So the first part is knowing what to do in your garden. Second part is knowing how to do it, right? Your actions. And that includes how to seed your starts, how to transplant, how to cultivate, how to build healthy soil, how to trellis your plants, how to extend your season into the winter without breaking your pocketbook. You know, we're honing in on that part right there in this winter gardening challenge. So that second part is knowing how to do everything in your garden. And then the third is when to do it. The timing of when to seed succession plantings, when to transplant into your garden, when to harvest it, putting it all into a calendar. And this is actually what creates that perpetual harvest hack, is when you can put all of those things into a calendar and you can end up with a weekly checklist for extreme clarity. So imagine with me, what if you had a weekly checklist that told you every week, you could just go to it and it would say, you need to be seeding this crop, you should be transplanting that crop out, and you should prepare the beds for this crop.
That sounds pretty amazing.
No, wouldn't that be pretty cool? Especially when it comes to a succession planting story, because you've got all of these different crops and they're intersecting with each other, right? So when you can have that, that's what we call a perpetual harvest hack, and that's what we're going to be sharing with you. But right before we actually show you the hack and the tool that we use, let's talk a little bit more about the number one critical factor for a successful winter garden. And Dad, you want to jump in with this?
Okay, so what is the most critical factor for extending your season? I suspect a lot of people are looking at that hoop house structure there. That's a great question, and I think most of our minds would turn to heat or protection.
Yeah.
That's normal. But the most critical factor is actually timing. In winter growing, timing is everything. Timing is the difference between having a crop and not having a crop. So it is important to protect vegetables from the cold and wind. We're not denying that. But before we get there, we need the vegetables themselves. And perhaps one of the easiest things to get wrong is timing, mainly because in preparing for a winter garden, timing is so critical.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about protection tomorrow, right?
Yes, we're going to talk about protection tomorrow. So that we're not denying that that's essential and important, but timing is even more important.
Yep.
Yeah. So The first critical factor when it comes to season extension is the timing of when you plant your vegetables. Timing can make all the difference from having a harvest to no harvest at all. So why is this? It's because as the weather gets cooler, and even more importantly, I mean, the coolness of the weather is definitely a factor, but even more importantly is the day length. As day length decreases, plant growth slows. As the weather cools, plant growth slows also. But again, the primary factor here is day length. The temperature is a factor, but it's not the primary factor. The primary factor is day length. So plant growth will slow, and it will eventually, for a lot of crops at least, almost stop. As a general rule, once you get to 10 hours or less of day length, you almost lose any plant growth. So if you're thinking now, I think if you're following me, you're realizing that where your plants are at when you get to that 10 hours or less, there's a period of time. For example, for us, we're in Middle Tennessee, and we have a period of time from late November through late January where our day length is 10 hours or less. And that period of time when the day length is 10 hours or less is called the Persephone period. So that's when your plant growth is just going to be kind of
slow down, almost to a stop.
I was going to say frozen. That's not quite the right.
No pun intended there, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we don't want it to be actually frozen. So during this period in the winter, your plants won't actually be growing, and hence our purpose in season extension isn't so much to grow the plants in the winter as it is to keep them alive through the winter. In other words, the goal is to reach them to the maturity you want them to be at when you enter that 10 hours or less period. So then we need to work back from there, but again, it's really challenging. You know, when on almost all your seed packets, you're going to have a days to maturity. When we get into the fall, those days to maturity just go out the window because it doesn't work anymore. The days are getting shorter and shorter, and plant growth is slowing and slowing and slowing until you get to those 10 hours or less when it almost stops. And so you're gonna need more and more time to get your plants to maturity. And then it works the other way coming out in the spring. If you're wanting the early crops in the spring, you're dealing with the reverse. Although
it's like a bell curve.
It's like a bell curve, but it's not. One side, the fall side is steeper, and the spring side is not as steep.
It's more gradual.
Yeah, it's more gradual. So it's very interesting. And anyways, the growth does speed up in the spring, and so you have to figure that in too. So this is what the curve looks like.
This, by the way, is a chart that was adapted from The New Organic Grower, which is a book by Elliot Coleman. So we give credit to him there. And he was specifically using lettuce, I believe, for this one.
I think it was he was using something with a 40-day maturity, and there aren't very many things out there with a 40-day maturity. I don't know where he got that from. But anyways, Elliot Coleman was the pioneer in North America in doing winter growing, and we highly recommend his work on that. So as the way this graph goes, as you go to the right on the time, your days to harvest are
increasing.
Yeah, on the left-hand axis.
So you can see over here, this is your number of days to harvest right here for this crop. So if it was planted in August, you're looking at like 45 to 47 days to harvest. If you plant it at the beginning of September, because you're going time-wise on the bottom here, then you're looking at, you know, a 75 days to harvest or something like that.
You'll be harvesting on November 10.
Yep.
And if you plant in October, the beginning of October, you're going to be harvesting February 2.
Yep.
You notice that 1 month there makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And then if you plant the beginning of November, you're going to be harvesting the beginning of March. And December, January, now we're speeding up. February, look at that. About 2 weeks difference between the beginning of January and the beginning of February for a harvest. So
now, if this seems complex to you, don't worry about it, especially like if you're a new gardener and you see this graph and you're like, man, that's way over my head. Don't worry about it. We're going to show you a tool that makes this very simple and that you can use in your garden. So you won't have to worry about this. We just want to give you the background to understand winter gardening and why timing is so important. So yep, Christy, I understand. We're not trying to confuse you. The main thing that we're trying to get across is that you want your plants mature by the time winter sets in, and then you're just going to basically keep your plants alive during the winter. You're not actually trying to get them to grow for most parts of the US, especially when it gets cold.
Yeah.
So we want you to get the main things that we want you to understand is that plants growth slows down over the winter, right? And so you need to get your plants planted early enough that they'll be mature by the time winter comes in.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as you can see here, something planted the beginning of September is going to take 70 days. It was back from the beginning of August, planted in the beginning of August, it was going to be 47 days. Planting the beginning of September, it's going to be 70 days. If you plant it the beginning of October, it's going to be 120 days.
Yep.
For something that would normally be about 45 days to maturity.
Yep. Yep.
So this is the challenge of growing in the winter.
Yep. So
timing is perhaps the number one thing that causes most winter gardens to fail. The first thing you need to know is what are your average frost dates, first and last frost dates
for your local area.
For your local area.
And don't worry, we'll share with you how you can do that.
And so some people ask, what if you do get your plants planted late? Can you save them? You know, if you get them planted, if you get them planted just a little bit late, you can maybe give them a little bit of extra protection and still get a crop out of them. The other thing is you're not going to necessarily lose them. They'll just be, you know, immature through that Persephone period, and then they'll start growing again as they come out of it. So you'll get them in the spring.
Yeah.
That with most things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the truth is, like, the day length factor with your days getting shorter is maybe the greater factor when it comes to your plants, but heat does play a role as well. So like Dad just said there, you could think of protection, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, and warmth as a little buffer to encourage your plants to grow a little faster. but we would say don't rely on protecting your veggies to grow your veggies during the cold. It's much better and will save you time and energy to start your plants at the right time so that they'll be mature as the winter sets in, okay?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Carol says, what kind of protection? Very good question. We're gonna be talking about protection tomorrow, so make sure to come back tomorrow night, and we're gonna talk about some very simple, easy ways to protect your veggies in the winter without any supplemental heating. We're talking about growing winter cold tolerant crops so they can handle a little bit of a freeze. One of the biggest things you need to protect from is the wind and the elements, and we're going to be talking all about that tomorrow.
So you can take a hint from that picture there.
Yeah, you can take a hint from the picture. We're going to be
talking about that.
We're going to show you a visual demonstration how to set this up for yourself in a way that is not very expensive at all. So how many of you would like to know how to create your own planting schedule in just minutes and be able to know how to know when to plant your plants for the winter? So up until this point, we've just been sharing with you timing is super important. Here's why it's super important, because you need to get your plants planted early enough so that they're ready to, they're mature by the time winter comes in, right? That's all good information, but then what about how can you do this in a really simple, easy way that's not too complicated? So if you go online, there are all kinds of like planting calculators, right? We have like Johnny Seeds has the spring and fall planting calculators. This is what we used to use, actually, right here.
Yeah.
You go in, you put in your first or last frost dates, and it will tell you when you should be planting different crops. And you could go use those. GrowVeg has a garden planning app. We've jumped in, we've used that a little bit. The problem with these is that it's still quite a bit of work. GrowVeg has a bit of a learning curve actually to it. It's not that intuitive, at least when I was using it. Johnny Seeds, spring and fall planting calculators, it's a lot of manual work because you're going in there, you're putting in your last or first frost date, and then it spits out all of these dates of when to plant, but then you've got to manually transfer those over into a calendar and write them in, and that's only your planting times. What about transplanting times? And what about, actually, I think some of them, the spring one, I think they actually have like a transplanting time where you'd have to write that in as well. And so it's just a lot of manual work going back and forth. And so what we decided to do is take these concepts, and we said, and this evolved over time. We're like, how can we make planting your garden super, super easy where anyone can do it, especially a beginner? And it would just be like a click and a drop, and in a matter of minutes, you could plan your entire garden. And so, drum roll, out of that was born what we call our 5-minute click and drop gardening calendars. And when we first launched these to our members, literally the chat went crazy. These are screenshots from that chat room when we first launched it to our members. Just people were going crazy. It's groundbreaking, no pun intended. Thank you, this is brilliant. I feel like I hit the jackpot. Love it. I'm always feeling behind. This will help a lot. Awesome. This is amazing. Wow. And then as people have been using them, just the feedback from them has been extremely positive as well. Like April down here, I started my planting calendar, super easy to use. I already have work to do. I love the new calendar. It keeps me on task, and so far it's been working great. Planted onion transplants, seeded peas and radishes. I'm building my calendar, going through all my seeds, super excited. I'm seeing so far with the program. So we want to give you access to a calendar during this challenge so that you can use one to plan your winter garden. How does that sound? Sound exciting? So here is what is included in the calendar. I'm going to go through just a quick little list here, and then we're going to jump over and look at the calendar itself so you can see what it's like. In the calendar, there comes click and drop planting schedules. I'll show you what that's like in just a second. We included leapfrog planting, succession planting built into the calendar itself, so you don't have to figure out all those things for yourself. We included weekly checklists of garden tasks. So once you planned your garden, you're going to have a weekly checklist of what to do each week. There's detailed instructions with demonstration videos, easy seeding or harvest filter. It includes your frost zone and quick links to our favorite varieties as well. So let's jump over and look at one of these calendars. So I can just give you a little tour of the calendar, is what we'll call it. All right, here we go. So here is a little tour of the calendar. We're just going to go through a little tour here, and then I'll transfer over to the homework, and I'll share with you how you can get access to one of these for a limited time during this challenge to try it out and to plan, use it to plan your winter garden even. So when you get access to it, you're gonna find your average last frost date, and you'll get a calendar that's based off of your average last frost date. And
they're going to find that.
And I'll tell you how to find that when we go over the homework, because in the homework there's a link of where you can do that. All right. So I'll walk you through that in just a minute. But you get a calendar, and so this means that your calendar is tailored and based on your location, which is super important because people live in different locations and planting times vary by location, right? And so you need one that's based on your location. Then on the left-hand side of the calendar, you'll see a bunch of crops that you can add into the calendar here. And actually, first of all, I'll show you, we also have the average frost dates for your location. And these are averages. It doesn't mean that it's gonna, your first frost doesn't mean that it's gonna happen on October 15. This is just an average ballpark. This is for our location here, okay? So our average frost date is actually like October 20 or something like that. But we can know that right around here, the end of October is when we should be expecting a frost, and then we can expect a frost all the way down through to the kind of the latter end of April right here. So with this frost guide, it makes it super easy just to at a glance to know, should I be expecting a frost now or not, right? We also include a hard frost zone. We'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow when we talk about protection, because we have some information on how much to protect based on how cold it gets, how much frost you're getting, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and just turn that frost one off. And then you'll come down here, and actually in all of our calendars, we have, these are based on year-round gardens. So you have both spring and summer plantings and fall and winter plantings for different crops that you can grow. So for planting your winter garden, you're mostly going to be looking at the fall and winter plantings, right? So you'll come down here, and this is what we call click and drop garden planning. You can literally click on a crop, and it will drop it, that planting schedule, into your calendar. It will tell you when to seed it, when to prepare your beds, when to transplant that crop. We threw in a couple of cultivation reminders, and then an expected harvest time for that crop. Again, this is a ballpark based off of the average days to maturity for beets in this example. And so literally, and what we did is we included multiple plantings. So if, like, for example, right now, we're on the 3rd of August here, and it's time to be seeding beets. But hey, what if I missed this planting? Well, good news, there's a second planting. So I can drop that one in, and coming up in a few weeks, there's another planting that I can seed beets, right? So we've included multiple plantings there. And so you can literally come in just minutes, you can click and drop the crops that you want to grow into your gardening calendar. So I'm just gonna drop a bunch of crops in here. Let's say these are all the ones that I want to grow. And once I have them dropped into the calendar, then each week I end up with a list of what to do for each week, which is kind of, so, clicking and dropping them into the calendar is pretty awesome in and of itself. And it gets even better than that, right? Because what happens is once you have them dropped in, you can come over to the list view here, and it will just narrow it down to the week that you're on, and it will say, okay, now is the time to be direct seeding your carrots. You should be preparing your bed for your cilantro, making sure that it's ready, because coming up next week, you're going to be planting your cilantro. And then there's a cultivation reminder for Brussels sprouts there, right? So each week you can have that, that little checklist of what to do. But it gets even better than that, because with the program that we have set this up on, you can actually filter down to specific tasks. So let's say I only want to see when I should be seeding the different crops, because it can get a little overwhelming, right? When you see all of these tasks all lined up against each other, right? So you can come down here, and you can actually come down and just filter down to only look at the seeding tasks. So this can be really helpful when it comes to making sure that you have seeds available ahead of time, right? So you can just filter down to seeding, and here we have seeding carrots, seeding cilantro, seeding beets. And you can say, okay, do I have carrots, cilantro, and beet seeds available so that I'm ready to plant those for this month? And you can put in your seed order if you don't. So that makes it really easy to be able to see when those are going to be planted and making sure that you have those seeds ahead of time. But you can, of course, you can filter it down just by one task, but you could also filter it down by a couple tasks. So you could put in both the seeding and the harvest times and just kind of hide all of the other tasks. And you can mix and match whatever tasks you want to see at any time in your garden. So I'm just gonna cancel those out and show everything real quick. Another thing is that you can filter also, I'm just gonna clear the thing. You can also filter by crop up here. So, you have this whole list of veggies and there's a lot there, right? But let's say I wanna grow lettuce. So I'm gonna put in lettuce here and it filters down to just the lettuce ones. And I'm gonna come down to the fall and winter lettuce plantings and I'm gonna start putting them in. And remember we talked about succession planting or leapfrog planting, right? What if I want a continual harvest of lettuce in my garden? Well, the cool thing about these calendars is that we have factored in a continual harvest of lettuce. So if I grow every single planting here, it ends up having a continual harvest, and I'll show you how that works real fast. So I'm just gonna filter it down to only look at the harvest because when you have all the tasks, you can't see it as easily. So I'll just filter it down to only showing the harvest times. And here you have lettuce number 6 here is harvested during this window. Lettuce 7 is harvested during this window. Lettuce 8 is harvested here. Lettuce 9 is harvested here. Lettuce 10, lettuce 11, lettuce 12. And we have factored in the slowing down of the growth of your plants over the winter, okay? So I'll show you how that works by switching to the seeding times. You'll notice that it starts out by seeding every other week. And then when you come into that steeper bell curve, you're gonna wanna switch to start seeding every single week. And then every single week you'll be seeding and, but because the plant's growth is slowing down, those harvests are gonna be spaced further apart. So
notice those harvests were taking you through February.
Yep.
And we're only seeding through the middle of October.
Yep. So, succession planting like that, it is a little bit more of an advanced game. So if you're a beginner, you don't necessarily have to do every single succession planting, right? But we wanted to give you the option and we want to build those succession plantings in. I'm gonna go back now, and so if you think that's cool, it gets even better than that, okay? So we're gonna go back and just drop in a whole bunch of different crops to grow here, okay? Just pretend this is my garden plan. So it gets even better than that because what we decided to do, remember our perpetual harvest hack, we said you need to know what to do, you need to know how to do it, and you need to know when to do it. So far we have what to do, like direct seeding, bed preparation, when you should be harvesting it, or what to do would be harvesting it. We have when to do it because it's dropped into your calendar. What about how to do it? So we took each one of these tasks, and for any given task, you can come in and click on the task, and it will pop up a little pop-up window, and it will give you specific crop recommendations for that task. It will, on the seeding task, it gives a link out to some of our favorite varieties. It gives seed spacing, how far apart you should be spacing those seeds. It will tell you what to do and how to do it. And then there are links over to our members area where you can actually see visual demonstrations of how to do that specific task. So let me just pull up carrots here, and you'll see here some of our favorite varieties include Napoli and Yaya. So you can literally, these are links in the calendar. You can just click on it. It will take you over to one of our favorite seed companies, and you could literally just order your carrot seeds right then and there. If the seed company's website works. Here it's coming up. It's just going a little bit slow. So you can add those seeds to your cart and you can check out right there, straight from, jumping over from the calendar to some of our favorite seed companies and where you can purchase those seeds. So that takes it to the next level. And if you think that's cool, it gets even better than that, because once you go over, remember we said you can look at it at a list view of what to do each week. You can take this list view and you can come up here to this drop down and you can print and export that list. And so you can take this list, you can actually, so it shows the whole sidebar here, you can actually turn that off and refresh it so it just has the list of what to be doing. And for each week, you can print off your checklist for each week ahead of time, so that when you're working in your garden, you can just take a clipboard out to your garden and you can manually check off those tasks as you do them in the garden. It just creates extreme clarity for your gardening experience, all right? So that is a quick rundown overview of how the calendars work. And there's a whole lot more to, when it comes to, for example, the succession planting. You can play around with it. I'll just show you one more thing here, like with the lettuce. Let's just take a couple lettuce plantings here. And let's say that I want to make sure that I have lettuce ready to transplant when this lettuce is being harvested, right? So I'm going to filter it down to only see the transplanting times and the harvesting times, okay? Now I need to find the next lettuce planting that will be ready to transplant when this lettuce is being harvested. So I'm guessing, yeah, like I know ahead of time because I've done this already, right? But lettuce, you jump down to lettuce planting number 8 is going to be ready to transplant around the same time that lettuce planting number 6 is harvested. So that way you can create a succession planting where you can have a continual harvest. Well, this would be, these two plantings would not necessarily give you a continual harvest just right there because of the how long the days to maturity of lettuce is, but it would keep that garden space growing on a continual basis, occupied on a continual basis. Yep. So there's a lot that you can do. This was a very quick rundown of some of the tasks, how you can do this in your winter garden. And we're excited because what we're going to do is we are going to put these calendars in your hand for a limited time during this gardening challenge, because we want you to be able to have the easiest way possible of planning your winter garden. And then tomorrow, we're going to reveal a pretty awesome opportunity for you to get your own calendar if you're interested.
So Sylvia says instant farmer.
Exactly, instant farmer. Be able to just do it immediately, okay?
You can be very green and have a pretty complex garden.
Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to pull up our slides here again real quick, and let's talk quickly about the homework, okay? Homework for today. So today's homework is you want to download today's homework sheet, and I'm going to walk you through that. Then you're going to want to find the calendar for your location and drop the crops you want to grow this winter into your gardening calendar, and then complete the sheet and celebrate by going live in the Facebook group. So I'm going to go ahead and post the homework sheet here for you so you can actually download that homework sheet. And then I'm going to jump over and we're just going to walk through the homework sheet with you so that you can see how this works, okay? Let's see here. All right, here we go. Day 2 homework sheet. So the first step in the homework sheet is to find your average last frost date. And there's a link here to go and do that, okay? And this is how you're going to find the calendar that's based on your location. And there's links on the next page in this homework sheet to the different calendars so that you can use them. So what you're going to do is you're going to click this link, and it's going to open up a website. And I'm going to jump over and show you because I want to walk you step by step through how to do this. So let's find this website here. Here we go. So this is Dave's Garden. How to look up your first and last frost dates by zip code. Let me just zoom it in so you can see. So I'm going to do this for example. This is like holding your hand through the process. I'm going to do it based on our location. So I'm just going to enter in our zip code and hit go. And it's going to show us our average risk of frost. So each winter, on average, your risk of frost for us here is October 11 through April 24, okay? What you want is to find the spring frost. I know we're talking about winter right now, but our calendars, because of the setup that we have them built on currently right now, they are all based off of spring frost, and fall frost usually correlate, the majority of them correlate fairly well with the spring frost. If you have a little anomaly, then there are a few anomalies that come in, but
probably more in the western states.
Yeah, most all of the calendars work off of the spring frost, and the fall frost just follows along. And so don't worry about that right now. Just look at your spring frost, so April 24. So then we will come back over, remember that number, April 24. And then you're going to come back over to the homework sheet here, and you're going to scroll down, and here you have temporary access to the planting calendars, and you're going to find the planting calendar based on your location. So April 24 would land here on this planting calendar, April 23 to 29, all right? So you're going to click on set up this calendar, and it will take you back over to, jump back and forth between these screens here. It will take you back over to the website, and this is what it will look like. It'll have a calendar set up. I highly encourage you to watch this video first about setting up your calendar. There's some important little things to take note of there. And then you're going to click this yellow button at the bottom that says click here to set up your calendar. And it's going to take you to the calendar itself. And this is an important step here. Now, step one is you're going to want to click on your hard frost zone on the side here and just turn it on. This is just an important step on the way that we set up the calendar here for you. And then it's very simple. Just click on it, turn it on, and then click complete calendar setup. And it's going to launch your calendar for you. And it will launch with both your frost zones turned on. So then you can turn those off if you want to. And then you can close each of these little folders. You can actually hit the little arrow and it closes it. So you can close them, close the actions. You're not going to deal with those at all. Then you'll see spring and summer. You can probably close that as well, and you'll just come down to the fall and winter, and then you can just start dropping your crops in for your local area, okay? And so that way you can plan out your garden for this winter. So that's step one in the homework, all right? Step one in the homework is to find your calendar, find your frost date, right? Your average last frost date in the spring, find the calendar that correlates with that and set it up. Step two is to plan your winter garden by dropping the crops that you want to grow into the calendar for your location. And then you can actually, so the calendar has a certain amount of most of the main crops that you may want to grow, but there are some crops that are not in the calendar. And what you can do is you can look up any crops that are not in the calendar, and you can either record the best time to plant those separately from researching online, or you can match them up with similar crops in the calendar based on their days to maturity, okay? So most of your winter crops are in the calendar already. I'll just share with you one winter crop that's not in the calendar right now, and that is like an Asian green like bok choy. Now, if you go and you look up the days to maturity, and you can just Google days to maturity of bok choy. When you look up days to maturity of bok choy, it's around 45 to 50 days to maturity, if I remember right, which matches with what crop?
Lettuce.
Matches with lettuce. Lettuce is also 45 to 50 days to maturity. And so you can go into the calendar and you can just make a mental note that when I plant lettuce, I'm going to also plant my bok choy. Does that make sense? So similar crops, you can look up similar crops that are in the calendar based on their days to maturity. And then once you have done that, you can celebrate and go live in the Facebook group or post in the Facebook group, share the first winter crop that you're going to plant, your number one takeaway from the class. This could be a personal aha moment or your favorite gardening tip or trick that was shared, and then celebrate completing the second day of the challenge. And that's the homework for day number 2 of our winter gardening challenge.
So if you keep scrolling down that homework, that's where the calendar links are.
Yeah, so if you, I'll just go ahead and pull that back up again here. So if you keep scrolling down on the homework page, it has the links to all of the different calendars. You want to find the one based on your location, all right? So find your last frost date and then set up the calendar that correlates with it. Let me make a note here. You'll see that some of the earlier ones, like January, February, March, the average last frost dates in those months, they have both a north and a south option. Use the south option if you live in Southern California, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida. Use the north option if you live in Central or Northern California or Oregon or Washington.
On the west coast, not over the mountains.
Yes. Yep. Yep. All right. So I'm excited to see what you do and this should make it a lot easier for you to plan your winter garden. I see some of you are asking, how can I access this calendar after the winter gardening challenge? Absolutely. So tomorrow, come back tomorrow, and we're going to share with you how you can get access to your own personal click and drop gardening calendar that you can have access to and use to plan your garden, etc. So tonight, we're giving you temporary access just during this training. I wanted you to get your hands on it to be able to try it out and see it and actually use it to plan your winter garden. In fact, you could jump in there, you could plan your winter garden, you could print it out, right? But we're guessing that some of you may want to continue with further access. So so tomorrow night, we're going to be sharing with you how you can do that. Some people are saying their connection cut out. By the way, we will share the replay of this so that you can watch it again and kind of go through because we're just going step by step, right? Some people are wondering about the download, so I'm going to actually post that download link in the chat. So I just posted the homework download link in the chat, all right? Where do I go to get the freeze dates, Vivian says. In the homework download, there's a link to get your frost date, all right? Yep. Rosie says, so we get the calendar now. So you get access to a temporary calendar. You'll get access right now for free to our full-scale calendar. You can use all of the features of it. The only thing that is not there because you're not currently a member with us is that you can't jump over and watch the videos. If you do that, it'll come up with a screen to log in. Tomorrow, we'll share with you how you can become a member with us and how you can get access to your own calendar for the long term. Yep. Mary says, how long will we have access to the calendar? Right now, I'm thinking that we'll give you access through Sunday. All right? We'll give you access through Sunday. So you have access during the challenge here, and we're going to give you a couple extra days with it. All right. Cloud says, will it work with Canada's postal codes? The link in Dave's garden, I am not sure if they include Canada's postal codes or not.
But you can I'm sure just with a little searching on Google, you can find some link, some Canadian link to frost dates and postal codes.
I know that Farmer's Almanac, there's a frost check on Farmer's Almanac, and that one has Canada's frost. Let me just find it here, because average frost dates, let's see if this works or not. I'm just going to try and get you the link. No, that's a different one. Almanac frost dates. I'm going to try and get you the link that definitely does. So it's the Old Farmer's Almanac. Here we go. Okay, so let me post this in the chat here. This one definitely does Canada's as well. Frost date calculator. So the one that I just posted in the chat, that does Canada zip codes as well, and it'll give you the frost date for that. All right. Georgianne says, the training video I can see, but how do I know which calendar to pick? They are showing on top of each other. Very good question, Georgianne. So you're going to first find your average frost date in the spring, and let's just say that's April 16. Then you're going to find the calendar that matches April 16. All right? That makes sense. So Janice says, in my Farmer's Almanac, it says the last spring frost is May 15, 1st October 1. So Janice, what you're going to do is you're going to take May 15, that last spring frost date, and find the calendar that matches May 15. And then you're going to use that calendar. All right. This is probably the simplest, this is hands down the simplest and the easiest way to plan your garden that I know of anywhere. I don't know of any,
especially a winter garden.
Yeah, especially a winter garden. I don't know of any tool that that matches the simplicity and the easiness. And tomorrow, just a little teaser for tomorrow. We're going to not only share with you how you can jump in, become a member, get your own calendar for the long term, but we're going to share with you a little sneak peek into the long-term vision of where this is going, because with our current calendars, they're awesome the way they are, but there's some things that we're going to be including in the future that are just going to take it to the next level. So you're not going to want to miss it tomorrow. Yeah. Yep. Okay, Welta says, I'm understanding the info, but not sure I can access all that you are giving. Is it in email or where? Very good question, Welta. Yes, we are going to send you all the information by email as well. So you're going to get it by email. We're posting it in Facebook, and I posted the homework downloads in the chat, but it's gone further down in the chat. All right.
James is wondering about winter garden seeds.
Okay, yeah. So let's transition to our question and answer time. I know we've got lots of questions about the calendars and then about other things when it comes to winter gardening. So let's transition to question and answer time, and maybe Dad, you can jump in with some of these questions while I pull up. So let me actually pull this up first. Just before we transition to the question and answer time, one quick reminder that you just saw the calendars. This is what you can win lifetime access to. Your own personal calendar, live monthly meetings, private Facebook access. So make sure to be active in the Facebook group. That's how you're going to enter to win that. But tonight we are doing the free giveaway of our plug and play garden plan. So I'm going to pull up a list of those who are on live through our presentation here. And while Dad is answering some questions, I'm going to pull up that list, and then we'll do the drawing live with you.
So I see Kylie's asking about an Australian version. I'm sorry, Kylie, we don't have something like that right now. We are talking about it, but it's going to be down the road a little bit still. What the best we can say for you right now is you'll need to invert the current calendar. What's the, if it's April 24. What would be the corresponding date in your hemisphere? You're just going to have to make that transfer and work that out manually yourself.
Yeah.
So and then James was asking about winter seeds. He said that he can't. He's finding a lot of them are sold out, and he's wondering when do people usually buy them. You know, this is an appropriate time to be buying winter seeds. Any time from late spring, summer into early fall is an appropriate time to be buying winter seeds. This particular year is very much an anomaly in the seed business. Because of COVID, people have been buying, they've just been doing a run on seeds. and they're not available, or they're hard to get, or it takes much longer for the seed companies to fill orders. That's just something that we're all dealing with right now. And I'm sorry, I don't really have a solution. We're just going to have to work, do our best to work with what's happening. Just, I'd encourage you to plan to make your spring seed orders early.
All right.
Try to make them early because we don't know what's going to happen next year.
All right. Are you all ready? I am ready here to do our drawing. So I am going to pull up a random number generator. Okay, so on, let's make this big so that you all can see it. So on my list that I downloaded, we have 513 people that were on live. 513. Let me just double check that. Sorry, 512. 512 on live. So I'm going to put that number in here, 512. And then drum roll, the winner tonight is number 344. 344. Okay, so we just do this 344. Remember that number. We do this because we want you to know that this is a legit drawing. It's 100% random. And so I'm going to pull up the list here. I hide your email so that we don't give away people's emails here. 344 was the number. So we're going to scroll down to number 344. The suspense is building. Okay, the winner is Corey. Corey, you are the winner of our plug and play garden plan. Little congratulations to Corey. Everyone give him a hand. Corey, you are the winner. I just highlighted you, so I will send that to you by email, and it looks like your email starts with Corey. So if there's multiple Coreys, hopefully you can differentiate that. So there you go. All right. Congratulations to Corey. Fantastic. Okay, so let's go ahead and remember, if you didn't win tonight, show up tomorrow. We're going to do another drawing tomorrow. Plus, we're going to share with you how you can get access to all of the cheat sheets that we've just been giving away. All right. So let's go and talk about questions now. Other questions.
So if you have a question that we didn't address in the presentation, please put it up again.
Yeah, put up your question again because they get they just fly to.
They get buried.
They disappear. Actually, we can't even get back to them because only a certain amount of chats are shown at a time. So drop in your questions again if we didn't answer your question, and we will take some questions now. Brent, does the calendar have a way to factor in crop rotation, as in givers after takers? So in our training, so the calendar specifically is just tailored to knowing when to grow the crops and stuff like that. Of course, if you click on the task, it shows what to do, how to do it, etc. In our members area, we have more in-depth training where we specifically talk about crop rotation and knowing which crops to plant following each other and stuff like that. So they are tied together, so you get that information in the training to go a little bit deeper with crop rotation and stuff like that.
But the calendar is not specifically addressing that. You can use the calendar and work it out.
Yep.
No.
Yep. Claude says, if we use grow lights for 12 hours, can we continue to actually grow? Yes, Claude, you can use grow lights and they will help your plants grow. Now remember, cold is a factor as well. So if it's too cold, even with your grow lights, your plant's growth is going to slow down. So it's kind of that balance of warmth as well as light.
If you have grow lights, you might as well grow them indoors.
Yeah, yeah.
And then not have to worry about the outside temperatures. And then the whole winter gardening thing is kind of mute.
Yep.
You just grow them like a regular plant.
Yep. SJ's has a really good question. I was wondering what direction you feel is the best way to run your rows in a greenhouse or tunnels, north to south or east to west?
That is a good question.
Yes.
That's a question that's generated lots of discussion.
Yeah, this is the $1 million question, and we've had experience doing both, actually.
Yes, and you know, there are a number of factors that work into how you orient something. You know, sometimes the slope of the land will, you don't generally want to put a hoop house or tunnel running up and down a hill. You're more likely going to want to put it across. So there are different things like that might take precedence over other things in determining your orientation. But in general, particularly if you're going to be growing through the winter, we really like to have our beds and our tunnels oriented north and south. That way they get sun exposure on the east side, coming around the south, and then on the west side. So they get a more even exposure of sun. If you have them oriented east and west, the plants on the south side of every bed are going to have full exposure, and the plants on the north side are going to have a little less.
They're going to be shaded.
Yeah.
So think of it this way, like these are my plants growing here, and let's say that the sun, in the summer, the sun is more direct overhead. It's going like this, right? But then in the winter, the sun is going to pull over to the side, and it's going to go more at an angle. And so the sun is going to be shining down at an angle at these plants, and the plants behind them are going to get shaded.
Yeah.
That's if your plants are growing east to west. If they're growing north to south, the sun going at an angle is going to pretty much give an even.
They'll get
even light to those rows.
All the plants.
To all the plants.
With even light.
Yeah.
So that is preferable in the winter, but don't be discouraged if you have other, like I said, if you have other factors that make it awkward or just not convenient to orient that way, you can still get by the other way.
Yeah. Well, and when we did it, we were growing out in the field, right, with our beds going east to west. And let's say we had a kale bed, and literally the kale on the south side would be the biggest and the kale on the north side would be the smallest. We harvested off of all of them. Yeah. They all grew. It was just the ones on the south side, they got the most sun, they weren't shaded out, and they grew bigger. And it was noticeable. We could tell the difference. Sometimes
we notice a little more frost damage on the north side too.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was a really good question. Susie's excited about the calendar. Awesome. All right. Brent, does the calendar have a way to factor in crop rotation, as in givers after? Oh, we touched that earlier. Colleen says, is it a good idea to purchase seeds now for the spring?
some catalogs might have them available, but I know that some will not. So it's a little early for that. If you have a catalog that has them available, you could go ahead and be looking for them. But
yeah,
I think that's a little early.
All right.
Susan has a good question there.
Yes, are frost dates changing?
Yes, of course. We never know what the first and last frost date's going to be until it comes, basically.
You know, this is why you put in the word average.
Yes.
Average, average, average. And over years, you know, over multiple years, that average may be changing as well. So you want to look up your, as current as possible, your average for your location. And so we use these tools online, and are they perfect? No, they don't. They're not perfect, but they're going to give you a ballpark, right? And with nature, you're always working with a ballpark because, like we just said, we don't know the exact date that frost is going to hit. You've heard of late frosts, right? Well, a late frost blew in and you didn't even realize it was coming. So you do want to look at that average of frost for your location and recognize that you may have a later frost than that.
Yeah.
And
so I mean, I would recommend that as a general rule, you be prepared for your frost date to be, for the actual first or last frost to be 2 weeks either side of that average date.
Yep.
You should be ready for it to be 2 weeks either side.
Yeah. Aqua says, do you remove the roots of the first crop when leapfrogging in containers? And great question. No, you can actually let those roots decompose in the container. You don't have to.
It's better to let them decompose in the container. You know, the root zone is full of microbes, and you really want those microbes in your soil. And so if you can just cut your plant off and leave the roots in there, that's better. Sometimes the root is it's a ball. Sometimes it's a problem, and yeah, you might just need that space to take it out. But if you can leave it in, that's preferable.
So a couple years ago, or actually just over a year ago, yeah, year and a half to 2 years ago, I was growing in containers. And what we would actually do is, like if I was growing kale, you can take that kale plant and you can kind of twist the plant, and it will take most of that ball out, or you can just pull the plant and kind of hold it at the base and pull the plant, and it will take some, it'll pull some of those roots out, but it will leave a lot of roots in, but it also removes kind of that ball right at the base. So because it's hard to plant into that ball, if you were just saying, if that's there. So, you can try and leave as many roots as possible in, but take it out to the point where you can still plant into it. All right. Yolanda says, am I able to buy seeds at my local nursery? And yes, Yolanda, you can buy seeds at your local nursery. We would suggest that you look for organic seeds if you're going to do that. And they may not be as high quality as from some of the seed companies that we recommended. Aaron says, can you talk about ground cover again? That's like winter cover crops and stuff.
Cover crops.
It's either winter cover crops or he's talking about silage tarp.
Yeah.
or mulching.
Yeah.
There's many different aspects of ground cover.
I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Maybe you could clarify.
Yeah. The principle of ground cover is that the soil likes to be covered. So it's best, and you look out in nature, soil is always covered, right? So it's best to have living roots in the soil. That's the most ideal. So that's why we suggest like a winter cover crop. Or if not that, the next best is to have a mulch or something like that. All right. Next question. Heather says, I need my soil to always have something growing in it. So if I use my high tunnel for the winter garden, would I put a cover crop in my uncovered garden? If so, would that need to be covered also in the winter?
Very good question. And yes, you can. I'd highly encourage you to put a cover crop, a winter cover crop, in your unused outside garden. and you do not need to protect your winter cover crop. If it's truly winter plants, they take care of themselves.
Yeah.
They're used to whatever nature's going to bring to them.
Yep. Mary says, how and where do I save my calendar so I can work on it the next few days? So good question, Mary. When you set up your calendar, it will walk you through the process of setting it up, right? When you have it set up on your computer, just keep that browser window open, or you can bookmark your calendar link there once it comes up. So you can save it, up in the top of your browser is the actual link itself to that calendar page. So you can save it, you can bookmark it in your browser, and that will be where you can just come back to it and use it during these days. And then Sunday, we're gonna actually be pulling those down, so you will lose access then. But if you jump in tomorrow, we'll share with you how you can get one for the long term. That is a personal one, just for you. There was another question.
Linnea, just keep scrolling down.
It's gone. They keep bumped off. Well, yeah, I saw Linnea was asking the question about what if I look at my frost zone and it says I have risk of frost all year long. Mm-hmm. So the answer to that is you want to use our furthest calendar, which is like July.
It's July to July 1. June something to July 1.
To July 1. Yep. So the very, very bottom one. June 18 to July 1 is the one that you'll want to use. And you'll just want to recognize in your location that you may need to be using some protection in your garden, even in the summer, especially if you're growing summer crops.
Yeah.
So if you have a hoop house or something, then you're going to be you're going to do really well. Otherwise, keep an eye on the weather and come back tomorrow and find out simple ways that you can protect your crops. Linda says, when I click on the calendar, it won't open. So Linda, send us an email and we'll get that working for you. I'm not sure what's happening there. Starla says, what do I do if the sources tell me that I'm in zone 8A, but the actual frost dates that I experience are different? So go with the frost dates that you experience, because even in locations, there are microclimates.
This is particularly true out west, where you can have a big change in elevation within a zip code, and so the zip code. I don't know how they choose what your frost date is going to be in those situations, but it might not be accurate for where you actually live.
Yeah. Pearl says, I have a small space, 4 by 10 feet. Is it large enough for Brussels sprouts only? So Pearl, you could actually grow several different types of vegetables in that 4 by 10 space. You can actually grow quite a bit in a 4 by 10 space. Or you can fill it all up with Brussels sprouts. That's an option too, but you can grow multiple different things there.
Brussels sprouts take up quite a bit of space. But
yeah,
you could have a number of Brussels sprouts in there.
Denise says, I'll be growing in 2 zones. Could I use both locations? So, during this free challenge, you can look at both locations. You can look at both calendars. Plus, if you come back tomorrow, or I should say when you come back tomorrow, right? And you get your own personal calendar for the long term, we will set up 2 calendars for you if that's what you need. And there's no extra charge for setting up 2 calendars. So we'll let you know all of the details on that tomorrow. Vonda says, so if we plug in all of the info into the calendar and we decide to purchase it later, will it transfer over? Very good question, Vonda, and I will share with you a way that you can transfer that over. I'm about 80 to 90% sure that we can set up a way for you to transfer that over. Otherwise, what we'll do is we'll tell you to go ahead and just make a list of, each crop planting is numbered, like lettuce 6, lettuce 7, lettuce 8. And we'll just tell you to go, and it'll be a little bit more manual. You'll have to go punch them in. like I said, I'm 80–90% sure that there is a way that I can actually help you just move it over just by sharing the link, and it'll be automatic. But if not, we'll help you get that covered either way. All right. Luis has a question about the calendar. Luis, you're one of our current members. Fantastic. So send us an email about that question and we'll help you out. Carlos says, how does winter sowing growth happen if in that 10-hour of daylight period? And Carla, one thing that I would say about that is that it's not a complete hard and fast rule that everything stops growing. Most things slow down almost to a complete stop during that time, but there are some things that actually keep growing during that time. And especially if they have a little bit of protection, the more protection they have, the more that they will keep growing. The warmer, it's this balance between light and warmth. So if it's warmer, they will keep growing a little bit faster. If it's colder, they almost stop, right? So you're dealing with this gradient.
Different things are different. In our experience, beets seem to truly just stop. Maybe even before 10 hours, I don't know. But collards, for example, are one of the things that seems to keep growing more than some other things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Each vegetable is different.
Tina says, what is a rule of thumb to space out your plants? Very good question, Tina. And really, it all depends on the type of plant that you're growing. And
growth habit is.
Yeah. So what I would encourage you to do is to jump in the calendar, and on the seeding or transplanting tasks for each different crop, you just click on it and it will tell you how far apart to be planting those. Carol says, how will you keep dirt warm in the winter? Carol, come back tomorrow. We're going to share with you all about how to protect your veggies in the winter and how much protection you need. And it might surprise you at how simple it can actually be to keep your garden growing in the winter.
Somebody asked if the calendar shows winter planting or just spring planting.
So the calendar shows spring, summer, fall, and winter. It's a complete year-round calendar. We're focusing on winter right now with you, but it's a year-round calendar. So you can use it in the spring, you can use it in the summer. Literally, if you put all the plantings in, you're planting something almost every week.
But there aren't very many things planted in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
I mean, the actual planting, that calendar will have you harvesting things through there, but not very many things that you can actually plant during that time, because it doesn't make sense to plant when it's not going to hardly grow anyways.
Yeah. Dorothy's got a good question. She says, how do you make the holes in frozen ground to plant seeds or transplant on schedule? Do you make them with a pickaxe? So, Dorothy, that's a good question. We recognize there are some places where it gets just about too cold you get too much snow or it gets too cold to be able to efficiently, on a small budget, be able to grow straight through the winter. So the principles we're sharing with you, for most locations, you'll be able to grow straight through the winter using some simple protection measures that we'll talk about tomorrow.
But the secret of her situation is that you're not actually planting or transplanting when the ground is frozen.
That's
You're
right.
going to be doing that in the fall.
Yeah.
In the late summer, fall time period. And you're going to have all of your crops for the winter in the ground before you have hard freezes like that.
Yep. All right. So Tony says, sorry, a little confused on how to set up the calendar based on the frost date. And I saw another question about that. So let's go over that real quick again together. So I'm just going to try and take it slowly, step by step. Okay. So the first thing that you're going to do is, in the homework sheet, there's a link over to Dave's garden for finding your average last frost date. And I'm trying to find Just going to share my screen here. It will take you to, let's see if I can go back. Okay. It will take you to this page on Dave's Garden. Okay. So you're going to put in your zip code right here, and you're going to hit the go button. Hit go. Then here, right underneath, it'll say your results, and it will say each winter on average, your frost, average risk of frost is October 11 through April 24. All right, October 11 through April 24. What you want to do is you want to find this date, and it will be the spring frost date. So it's the latter one. So January, February, March, April, May, June, any of those months right here. You're going to take that number right there, April 24, okay? Remember that, April 24. Then we're going to come back over to the homework sheet. And at the bottom of the homework sheet here is the list of all the different calendars based on different locations. So you'll notice each calendar here has like March 12 to 25, March 26 to April 1.
Each calendar is set up for a week window.
Yeah, a week window, or some of the earlier and latter ones are like a couple week window, or some of the earliest ones actually are a little bit longer than that. But so April 9 to 15, April 16 to 22. So April 24 lands between April 23 to 29, right? So that's the calendar that you're going to set up right there, based on that number that you looked up in Dave's Garden. So hopefully that, and then you click where it says set up this calendar, you click on that and it will open up the page to set it up. And please watch the video there because it tells you how to set up the calendar there. Hopefully that walkthrough was simple and easy to follow. All right, Carol says, I have watermelon growing now, but something ate the smallest one. When should I take the bigger one off? It's about the size of a softball.
You know, telling when a watermelon is ripe is pretty tricky. You know, you have to do the thumping thing, but there is one trick. If you look on the vine, you know, the little tendrils that come off with where each leaf branches off the vine. If you look down the vine going towards the base, towards the watermelon, if those tendrils are dry up to where the watermelon is, that's a sign that it's nearing ripe. Another thing you can do is you can look at the base of the watermelon. Some of them are white or yellow where they're setting on the ground when they're ripe.
Yeah.
So those are a few things in addition to thumping, which I'm sure which hollow sound it's supposed to be. Thump, thump, or
Yeah. Elaine has a good question here. She says, how should I store extra seeds? What's the best way to store extra seeds?
Yeah, that's good. The enemy of seeds there are two enemies of seeds, heat and moisture or humidity. So you need to store them in a cool and dry place. So put them in some sort of a container that you can seal, you know, a Ziploc bag or a canning jar with a good lid on it, something like that. And then you can store them. You can either store them in the refrigerator or you can just find a cool, dark place. It's better not to have them in the light either. So a cool, dark place, anywhere in your house, you can store them there.
Yeah. The refrigerator is a very good place to store seeds. It's cool, it's dark, and if you put them in an airtight container, it will keep the humidity down. And so you can store them for a long time in the refrigerator. Let's see, some other questions here. If I have had collards and kale growing this summer, could I just leave the plants in for the winter? Valerie is asking.
Yeah, that's a good question, and you can. You know, where we are, our plants often get ravaged by bugs and disease, you know, in late summer, and so we usually just start over again for the fall and winter. But if your plants are doing well, you can carry them through.
Yeah. Janice says, what's your favorite varieties of winter crops? So Janice, if you jump into the calendar there, under each crop, and you click on the seeding task for each crop, it will pop up with a whole bunch of information, but one of them is links out through some of our favorite varieties. So you'll get to see some of our favorite varieties for fall or winter crops. Yeah. Someone else was asking about how do I get to those calendars. Download the homework sheet. I will put it up here again. And download the homework sheet. We'll send it out by email. We'll post it in Facebook. We try and get this information to you in every location so that you're able to find it. All right. Favorite lettuce, kale, spinach? Yes. So look in the gardening calendar. Jump in there, and you'll see some of our favorites in there. Fran says, "What mulch do you prefer?"
That's kind of a challenge. I mean, there are a lot of good ones. I would say that the best mulch is the one that you can easily and cheaply get.
Yeah.
You know, it's better to have something than nothing.
A lot of good ones are like straw or hay can be good mulches.
Yeah.
Hay, you may get into issues with lots of weed seeds in the hay. But then, you know, some people talk about wood chips as a mulch, and wood chips can be a good mulch. But you want to make sure that you have good biological activity in your soil if you're going to put some wood chips on, because they break down very slowly, and yeah.
You don't want the wood chips in your soil.
In your soil, you only want them on top.
I'm always concerned that when I'm, you know, putting transplants in or taking root crops out, that the wood chips would be falling down in.
Yeah.
So I prefer straw or hay, or you can use compost as a mulch as well.
Yeah.
That works well.
Donna says, should you put ground cover plants in your containers? Very good question, Donna. And the answer is containers are a little bit different than out in the regular garden. So we don't usually put a ground cover on the containers. Now, I would mulch your containers. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
I would mulch them. You'll find that you save a lot of water because you don't have to water as much if you mulch your containers. Brandon says, hadn't heard of silage. My nursery hasn't heard of silage tarp. You got me worried about chemicals in the mulch. Should I go with straw? Straw is a good mulch. You do want to make sure that it's a straw that has not been sprayed with herbicides.
Yeah, if you can find an organic straw, that's definitely preferable.
Yes. So, you know, silage tarp is kind of nice because you don't have to worry about herbicides.
Yeah.
But silage tarp is primarily for weed control, weed suppression, and just knocking out a whole section of your garden.
Yeah, you don't use silage tarp
as a mulch. Yeah.
There are other plastics that you can use as a mulch.
Yeah. Okay, Xanthia says, are there any questions for keeping bugs under control? Are there any special herbs or plants to plant nearby to deter bugs? So, Xanthia, that's a very good question. And I mean, bugs are a big thing, a big question in the garden. And unfortunately, in this gardening challenge, we don't have time to go through a whole information on pest control. We should do a pest control challenge.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
But the beauty of winter gardening is that, you know, apart from chance of pest issues in the early fall when you're just first putting crops in, you're just not going to have pests in the winter.
Yeah, yeah. Winter gardening, you do not have the same pest issues.
All the pests go hide. So
yep,
that's one of the joys of winter gardening.
Yep. Eileen here says, what about fennel as a fall winter veggie? Absolutely. Fennel,
yes,
fennel is an excellent fall winter veggie.
It does need some protection, but it's a good one.
Yep. All right, excellent. Welta says, well, I'd be able to do this all on my phone. I typically only use my phone. Do I have to use a computer or iPad to be able to do all this? So Welta, yes, the calendar itself works best on a computer or phone. Excuse me, on a computer or iPad. You can access it on your phone. It's just the screen is so small that with, you know, dropping crops into the calendar and you know, looking at where they are and stuff like that, it's a little bit more difficult. You know, it is mobile friendly in that it does have a setup that can be viewed on a phone screen. So you can try it out, but it is a little bit more, it's a little bit harder to use on a phone just because of the size of the screen.
Andrea says, what's the lowest temperature at which we can expect the winter garden?
Well, let's talk about Maine. Elliot Coleman growing in Maine real quick, right? So his temperatures, he's like in zone 4B something. He gets down to like negative 15, I think. Negative 15, negative 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where it gets down to negative 15, negative 20, those are his lowest temperatures. So usually that would just be on a night or two or something like that. It's not like, this isn't like his regular temperature, right? But he can grow without any supplemental heat. He can grow a lot, most of the things, everything that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Just using simple protection measures, and we'll tell you all about that tomorrow. Yeah. All right.
Laurel saying she's using a. Can you give that? The old Farmer's Almanac has Canadian postal codes.
Yeah, if you live in Canada, Canada frost dates. So if you live in Canada, I just posted a link in the chat that you can use to find your frost date based on your postal code, and it should pull up. All right, Aqua says, my last frost date is March 21 to 31. I'm using March 26 to April 1. Perfect. Very perfect. All right. All right. Hey, well, you know, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. I think that I know there's so many more questions, but we've got to kind of have a little bit of a cutoff time here to wrap things up. We don't want to keep you all up too late. And I've got a little boy that's probably already down, and we've got to go here as well. So we look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget the homework for tonight. Definitely download the homework sheet for tonight and find your calendar. Start planning out your winter garden, dropping those crops in, figuring out when you should be planting each of the different crops for your winter garden. And we can't wait to see you tomorrow night, where we're going to be talking about protection. And we're going to be, we've got some big announcement tomorrow night. Going to be sharing how you can get one of these calendars for yourself, plus a whole lot more coming tomorrow night. So you're not going to want to miss it.
So, you know, I'm seeing there are a lot of really good questions on here that we're not able to get to tonight. So please hold those questions, keep track of them, don't lose them, and come on.
Yeah, come back
Wednesday night.
Yeah,
come back Wednesday night, and we'll spend probably most of the time just trying to answer your questions.
That's right. Day 4, bonus day that we didn't even announce at the beginning when we were promoting this winter gardening challenge. Bonus question and answer time. We're going to answer a lot more questions then. Plus, we're going to share with you how you can get more personal contact to us, where you can jump on and get every question answered, basically. But more on that tomorrow. We'll share more on that tomorrow. All right. So hope that you had an awesome time today. Really loved being on here with you. A huge shout out to every single one of you that joined us. Make sure to download the homework, go through it, jump into the Facebook group. Especially when you complete it, go live or make a post in there, share it with everyone. And we can't wait to see you tomorrow night, where we will be talking about protecting your winter veggies in a very economic way that won't break your pocketbook. It's not too expensive and is really effective as well, right?
Very effective.
All right, good night, everyone. Look forward to seeing you. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll be in touch. We'll see you tomorrow night. Bye-bye.